So here's the analysis for Bitcoin. The daily time frame, obviously things are changing, right? They have already changed. We discussed this. July 24th was that day where, I put out that market update and I tagged everyone. I said, hey, please read this update. This is a critical shift and it's something different than what we've been getting. It is a huge event in the market, and we'll talk about that as soon as we jump into lower time frames. But we talked about just how significant it was, right? And if you go back and you watch any of the old live streams, you see me very adamant about bulls being complacent, right? Very adamant that this is the sixth time, this is the seventh time, we're downtrending. We can't reclaim any levels, we can't show strength, we can't do anything. It just seems like the breakdown is a matter of when and not if, right? It seems like bulls are complacent because there is no strength. There is nothing making us believe that we're going to break the trend, that we're going to see mid range again, that we're going to see range highs and we're going to see whatever, or we're going to break out above the range and maybe start a new bull market, maybe just come up to 47K. Who knows, right? And we are adamant that the trend is going to remain the trend until that changes. And so on low time frames, that changed. That already changed. So if you are still the person that's adamant on bears being bulls being complacent and the range breaking down and the downtrend is still a downtrend or whatever, you're late. I hate to tell you, but you failed to adapt to the market that prints new information every single day and tells you what's more probable to happen as a result of whatever information is being printed, right? So we discussed this. We discussed if the strength is shown, it is so much easier to adjust while anticipating the more probable outcome. And we said that for all of this downtrend, all of it, every single bit, right? The entire analysis was okay, we're in a range, but we're bearish testing the daily 200s along with the 4-hour 200s. We know those 4-hour 200s consistently act as macro bottoms, macro tops, whatever. So this is likely to get rejected. We're not anticipating anything crazy. Range highs tend to mean range lows, right? And then range highs led to range lows. And we saw, okay, we're starting to get a little bit complacent. We're seeing weaker bounces. We are in an uptrend. We failed to hold or above the mid range or crack above the mid range. Now we're downtrending back into range lows. The trend is remaining the trend for all of this price action. All of it. The trend is doing what the trend should be doing. Right? This is that black line. That's our trend. This is different. This is not what we are used to. We are used to strongly sloped, strongly momentum downtrend within the range. Yeah, of course, and we're still in the range, and that is the daily analysis. I can't really give you much more of an analysis on the daily. We've broken our daily structure bullishly because this is all obviously one higher high, right? And that occurred on July 25th, so yesterday, or at least yesterday's trading day. So there's not much more of an analysis on the daily other than the simple fact that we are still in a range. But when you do zoom in, this is different. Don't even need to look at price action. Let's turn it off, right? What are probabilities here? They're slightly sloped towards the downside, and then they start to shift sort of neutral, right? So maybe we could say 50-50. What are probabilities here? Strongly favored towards the upside, right? Strongly. It's obvious. I could show this chart to a fifth grader and they could tell me. It's very clear that we have upwards momentum. What's our momentum here? It's sideways. There isn't really too much of a favor. It only becomes more exaggerated as time goes on, right? They start to pinch closer together. They start to lose even more of a slope. So now they're really going sideways. What's the momentum here? For all of that price action, what's the momentum? What's the slope? What's the probabilities? Who's more probable to be in control as for the high time frame price action? It's very clearly obvious that bears are in control, right? What's this? This is we had sideways, right? That July 24th market update comes out and says, "Hey guys, this is different. This is huge. This is significant. Pay attention to this moment. This is a crucial flip in the environment." And then from that, 40K, right? It was that simple. All we did was we traded the trend for 3 months. For 3 months, bears were in control. For 3 months, we had a bearish bias. For 3 months, we were making the complacency argument, the argument that you're more likely to break down if you keep this up. The longer that you keep this up, you're just going to keep going down, right? That was the argument that we were making. That was the analysis. It was the probable analysis. And along the way, we're discussing trends are made to be broken. So we know that. It's that whole the white swan sort of analogy, right? Whereas if you were to call something like a global pandemic, so COVID, a black swan event, that's not really a proper thing to call it. Global pandemics happen once every decade. Really, they've been happening every decade, and they tend to happen at least every 100 years or so. So it doesn't make sense to call COVID a black swan event. It doesn't make sense that you should expect COVID, right? You shouldn't go around every single year and just say that this is the year that we have a global pandemic, right? But it does make sense to prepare and be aware that that is a true possibility, and actually it's likely to happen eventually, right? It's the same thing when you're talking about trends and momentum in markets. This is the likely outcome. This is every year that we don't have a global pandemic, where the trend just remains the trend. We get to live our lives regularly, right? Like nothing is happening in the world, and we just focus on ourselves. This is the trend is finally flipping. Trends are made to be broken. It broke. We adjusted. All of a sudden, the same bearish bias that kept us bearish from May 13th or so, or whatever you want to say, to July 23rd is no longer a valid argument. It's going away. It's gone away, if not already. So bulls are in control. The argument from here is if you're a bear, if you're still making and fighting on the bear side, the argument that you are desperately holding on to, which is the same argument that we made for the bulls not too long ago, was you're still in the range, right? So you're still in the range until you're not in the range anymore. Whoever breaks the range is in full control at that point. You break down from the range, we expect expansion downwards. You break up from the range, you expect expansion upwards. Do not be the person who, if we break down from the range, you are complacent and saying, oh, 27.6K, that's going to be the bottom. Oh, 26.6K, that's going to be the bottom. 25.8K, that's the bottom. 24K, that's the bottom, right? Looking for the reversal, trying to fight the trend, trying to fight the whatever answer comes from this range, a 2-month long consolidation period where you've gone sideways, and it's just created all this fuel, and whichever way it breaks is likely to determine, are we going to trend upwards for the next few weeks, few months? Are we going to resume a bull market? Are we going to resume or start a bear market, right? Who knows? So when you have something like that, you do not want to be the person that is in denial and trying to fight the expansion, trying to fight the momentum away from something like a 2-month long consolidation, right? So bears still have an argument. Do not get me wrong. Bulls are now taking control, if not taken control already. And I think that's very obvious now. And if it wasn't already obvious, then that July 24th, right? How often do I send out an update and then go into live market updates and tag everyone and say, hey, go read this, right? I don't care too much. If you don't want to spend every single day reading the market updates, I get that. It only takes 5 minutes of your time. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's cost effective as far as time wise and the value that you should kind of get from it. I like to think that at least. But that July 24th update was crucial. How often do I do that? I wouldn't have done it if Bulls didn't start taking control, if they didn't start putting their foot down and really creating a massive shift in the market environment, right? Not just the current trend, the environment. We are now bullish. We are still in the range, but we are bullish. Just like how many days ago we were still in the range, but we were bearish. This is bearish price action, right? These are all lower highs and lower lows. This is bearish price action. Bulls are desperately holding on to these range lows and hoping for some sort of reversal, right? It's flipped now. Bulls are in control. Bears are hanging on to these range highs, hoping for a reversal of any time frame. Your 1 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute, 30 minute, hourly, 4 hour, whatever they can get. That's what they're holding on to. That's what this resistance is. This resistance either gives way to what should theoretically be massive expansion into 47K, our 200 daily moving average, 52K, 55K, 59K, maybe new all time highs, whatever. Or this zone holds and it flips our 5 minute bearish, right? And then the 5 minute leaks down into the 15 minute. It flips that bearish. And then that leaks into the hourly and then flips that bearish. And then that leaks into our 4 hour. And now we're below the 4 hour 200s again. And now we're downtrending on the daily once again. And now we're coming down into these range lows. And now it starts to look like complacency all over again, right? It's not probable. It's not a probable outcome. If every single time frame is confluently telling you, hey, up is the trend, then up is the trend. Up is the more likely outcome. You are at resistance, so keep in mind I was telling you the exact same thing, but inverse down here. Hey, down is the trend. Down is the trend. Down is the likely outcome. If it holds, it holds. And then it flips the 5 minute and then the 5 into the 15 into the hourly, yada, yada. Right? And then great, the daily demand zone held, and maybe it shows strength, or maybe it's just a dead cat bounce and we're still within this downtrend that we've been stuck in. It's the same exact analysis here today, but inverse. So let's zoom in. Let's look at what I would like to think of as like the golden goose. The golden goose for the Bitcoin chart is this 4 hour time frame. The 4 hour 200 MAs, the same thing, the same dynamic region that were constantly macro bottoms for the entire bull market and macro tops for the 3 month long downtrend that we just escaped from. Macro tops for 3 months, macro bottoms for a year, have now just been reclaimed. That is significant. That is the market is shifting. Yes, we are still stuck in the range. The context of this time around compared to this time, or this time, or this time, is much, much different. Bulls are in control, whereas here, bears are in control of what is a sideways trend on the high time frames. But when you jump into a higher time frame than that, a higher outlook than that, bears are heavily in control. Strong downside momentum, right? Breaking structures on our daily slash weekly or whatever. That is bears are in control. This is a bearish market environment. All of this price action. This is different. Oh, yes. I was the one telling you this looks like complacency. This looks like 2019 when we, kept cracking away at the exact same daily level, forming lower highs and lower lows or equal lows. It looks like 2018 where we keep cracking away at the same daily level. We're forming lower highs and equal lows. And it's likely that this time's no different. And that's what I'm going to assume. And if it is different, then I adjust and look how well we adjusted. And then look at the result from adjusting. So that is the important part that I want to get across. Do not marry your thesis. Do not marry your plan for price action because guess what? The market doesn't give a shit, right? That's the honest truth. Be ready to adapt, assess probable outcomes, and be ready to acknowledge when those probable outcomes have not played out in your favor and adjust. And we did just that. Not only were the market updates bullish, I believe DefSo was bullish, Martian was sending out long trades. This is different, right? This is a different market. So, very, very exciting stuff, clearly. The whole bearish arguments, as far as what I'm seeing on my timeline, to me, it is, oh, hey, we're still in the range. Or, oh, hey, this gives me 2019, China pump vibes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, 2019, this was 2019 China pump, where we had same exact thing. You're consistently bashing away at these lows, finally you break down, and then we get this like massive liquidation cascade towards shorts, right? So, oh, this gives me 2019 vibes. Oh, this can't keep going. Oh, we're still in the range. That's the argument right now. That is now flipped into complacency for the Bears side. So now Bears are getting complacent. If it keeps going up, you're going to hear people start saying, all right, well, it's just going to tap, the 200 daily moving average, and then it's going to fall down. It's going to create a deviation. We're going to close back inside the range. We're going to, cascade all the way back down to range lows. Or, it can't keep going. It's just going to keep going up until 47K. That's daily supply. And then we're going to get rejected from there. And then it's going to crash down, right? It's now flipping. The people who are failing to adjust, the people who have failed to adjust, are now desperately hoping that this time ends up being no different than last time and last time and last time, even though the context of the situation, right? This whole piece of price action is vastly different than everything else we've been seeing for the past 3 months. That is the point. Yes, you are still at the range. Yes, this is major daily supply, and it does not make sense to be a buyer at this region. It's very low risk reward, right? But it's the context of the situation that is vastly different than the past 3 months of price action. I cannot express that enough. Oh, hourly candle, obviously, this is pretty ugly. You could argue the same exact thing here. And this is why I say candlestick trading, wicks, whatever you want to call it, completely useless. We formed consolidation. We have consolidation market structure. We're forming lower highs and higher lows. And eventually we break up and out and then today's market update says, hey, from this breakout upwards of this consolidation, a likely result is tapping our range highs. And then here, obviously, we did just that, right? This is bulls are in control. If the range holds, great. If they manage to, crack this down below the hourly market structure, which is the higher low up here, and then we lose this 37K supply zone now, we lose that as support, then we can start looking for the move lower. And we can start looking for, okay, where does the low time frame bleeding stop now that bulls are in control? We can look for our 4-hour 200s. Those are currently confluent with this 33.7K region. We can look for our hourly 200s, desperately trying to catch up to the current price action, right? Starting to strongly slope upwards. So maybe by the time that we do come down here, they are somewhere around this region, right? That's what I would sort of expect or anticipate. Or maybe the trend is so strong that we have to zoom in to very, very low time frames, right? Our 15-minute 200s acted as a sort of local bottom twice now. So maybe those give us another local bottom on any rejections from this range high, right? You want to take it level by level, time frame by time frame. While I am here spewing bullish arguments and how the market and context has changed, understand I am not a buyer at range high daily supply, right? At daily resistance, range highs, the same range that we've been stuck in for the past 3 months. I am not a buyer right here, right now. I was the person who took his, analysis on the chin after being right for 3 months on bears are in control. This is a downtrend. I am the person who flipped bullish here, positioned, and now I can sell range highs comfortably. And if we pull back, great. If we keep going, even better, right? You do not want to be the person who is failing to adapt to the market. It constantly prints new information and probabilities change with every single tick that gets printed. All right. Just want to get that clear because I know last few live streams have probably made a lot of you hate crypto, hate the market, hate that you're exposed to Bitcoin or whatever. So this is your hopium. Yes, it is exciting. Do not lose sight of logic because you will get fucked, right? If you are the person who said, oh my God, Mercury is bullish now, and you bought range highs, good chance you're going to get fucked. Just saying. All right. So with that, let's zoom in to ETH. Let's make a very similar analysis on ETH now. What just happened to my chart? Wait a minute. All right. So ETH now, very, very similar analysis. So we said around here, ETH looks like complete shit until it doesn't. Right? We're below the daily supply. We're below the 200 daily moving averages. I believe there's the 4-hour 200s also in this region. So when that market update comes out that says, hey, this is obviously different, then you can kind of assume the same thing for ETH as well. And truly, I have not been sending out any sort of market analysis on altcoins or anything other than Bitcoin because they're all underperforming Bitcoin, right? What is the point of me looking at altcoins if Bitcoin is just going to outperform? That's my personal thoughts and feelings. That's the most logical way that I can see to approach the market as of right now. And we're going to talk about dominance in a second. We're going to talk about BTC in a second. But the reasoning I have not been so focused on ETH or BNB or any altcoin, whatever altcoin you want to spew out, is because 99% of them are just not outperforming. So why not just spend more time understanding the Bitcoin chart fully and knowing when to adapt and when to adjust and being rewarded more on a more liquid asset, right? That is my thought process, and I am clearly reflecting that in the lack of variation in these market updates because I just want everyone to fully understand that Bitcoin chart. That is my main goal. I want everyone to be on the same page as me for Bitcoin. All right. So ETH USD reclaim those 200 dailies, reclaim that daily demand zone, and currently expanding up and away from it. And no matter how you could have made a market structure analysis, there's so many different ways that you could make it. You could say this is all one lower low, or you could say this is higher low, lower high, lower low, and you could say, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, whatever you wanted to say. It doesn't really matter because this is a higher high, right? So no matter what, whether you see it as this high or this high or this high, you have cracked your daily market structure bullishly. That is really all the analysis that you need for this daily time frame. Do keep in mind that ETH USD has a huge. We're gonna change this 1 second. I like to do 500. Once you ask me what this is, it is a fixed range volume profile. I love to use it, and then I change the row size to something like a high number, and then change value area volume, and that just changes the color. So nice and pretty. All these have the same color, but yeah. So keep in mind that ETH USD has a huge block of supply all throughout this region, right? That is also why I'm not too keen on paying attention to this chart, because this has a pretty good chance to be somewhat illogical. We have this really huge volume spike, and we can see that this is that resistance that it found last time, and it might find here again, right? So we are at resistance for Bitcoin. We're at those range highs, and we're at major sort of like pivot level throughout the range within a huge block of supply for ETH USD as well. So they're kind of in the same point, or at the same like point in their price action, but ETHUSD has this massive block of supply where sellers or buyers could step in anywhere in this price action, and it's likely to be very illogical just for the simple fact that we've traded in this general region for what is this? This is like a couple weeks, and then this is like a month, and then this is like another week or so. So you can say we've traded through this general region for like over 2 months. So now we have a ton of volume that has been traded at all of these prices because of that, because of how exaggerated this like simple area, this 2100 to 2800 region has dragged on, right? So that is the higher time frame analysis for ETH. The lower time frame analysis is much, um, what's the word? Much more optimistic, because the 4 hour chart has the same argument that we're making for Bitcoin, in that the market is shifting, at least for some sort of like high time frame relief bounce, um, you know as far as momentum reversals or whatever. And who knows, possibly the resumption of a bull market, maybe not, who knows, right? But now is the time where you can start making that like narrative, or drawing up that hopium, or being that optimist, and there's significantly a better chance that you're going to be right, as opposed to when we are strongly downtrending and strongly sloped towards the downside. So we can make the same argument for ETH, of course, but I would make an even more crucial argument for ETH for these 4 hour 200s, because they have also been macro bottoms, macro tops since COVID. Since the peak COVID drop back here in March of 2020, we reclaim these 4 hour 200s, and we consistently use them as macro bottoms and macro tops ever since then, right? The only sort of slight deviation that I could even possibly find to that is this piece of price action right here, and that in itself is also a 10% move. So while it's not as big as what we're used to, it definitely is still big. 10%, that's pretty substantial when you're just going about your day. Intraday 10% move in the course of, let's see, 3 days. That's a pretty solid move. But I'm talking about huge, huge moves over the course of weeks, if not months, right? That's what I'm discussing. That's what I'm more focused on. That's what I'm more adamant about. I'm discussing, hey, when you reclaim these 4 hour 200s, you tend to see large moves over the course of weeks, if not months, right? Or, hey, we go on and we use these 4 hour 200s as macro bottoms from October of 2020 to February of 2021. For 4 months, they consistently act as a macro bottom for a very strong uptrend. That is probabilities. That is strength at its finest, right? You do not get any cleaner than that. So then, when you lose them as support, they then see 45% drawdown over the course of 3 months. That's what I'm focused on. So, obviously, in order to do something like this, you have to lose these 4 hour 200s. It's not necessarily that every time you lose these 4 hour 200s, you're going to get a three or you're going to get a negative 50% drawdown over the course of 3 months. But it is in order to do that, and in order for that to even be worth discussing, in order for that to even be somewhat probable, you have to break down and lose them and flip that trend. So that is what I am focused on. This could just be, we uptrend for a little bit, we tap this demand zone or whatever, and we come down and we can't hold this support. And this just led to, what is this move? Let's see. This just led to a 15, 20% move up into resistance. And then we eventually break down, we slope bearish again, right? Very well could be. But it is now worth discussing the bullish scenarios, the bullish, whatever narrative that you have, that ETH is not done and it's going to 10K by winter. It's now a much more probable scenario than it was when we're using these 4 hour 200s as macro tops and consistently finding lower highs and equal lows, right? So coming up into resistance, you can see I kind of marked out that like pivot level that we had on our VPVR. Can't see it. Trading view sucks. It changed my settings again, but um, that little pivot level, this red line, kind of the point in control, and we have that marked out. So obviously we know that we can anticipate some sort of resistance here, and that makes sense. Bitcoin is also at range highs. So as I'm saying this, I'm assuming that Bitcoin is getting rejected from range highs. Kind of a logical thing to do, right? Not too surprising. So again, for ETH, we can look for these higher time frame levels to hold and look for the continuation of the current trend of the macro shift in this environment. And we can say, this general region where we have our 4 hour 200s, along with this 2140 4 hour demand zone, might be a pretty solid place to look for a big bounce and continuation of a much bigger trend up and away from this block of supply, so we can start trading towards the upper side of that supply zone and eventually continue up into 3200, right? And then we can zoom into lower time frames as well. Now we say, all right, our hourly is consistently finding higher highs and higher lows. We're on the brink of that kind of getting lost. Actually, is that higher? Yeah, it's still higher. Looks like it might get lost pretty soon here, but these are all higher highs and higher lows. We had consolidation, then we find higher high sees uptrend, breakout, whatever. We're still within that uptrend, technically speaking, but it's not looking too hot. Looks like this might break down and might get rejected from this general zone, right? The higher time frames starting to put its foot down, potentially flipping these lower time frames back bearish once again. So then it comes to a point where our lower time frame weakness might have to meet up with some new high time frame strength, and we're going to see from there. Was this move a fluke and the lower time frame weakness leaks up into our higher time frame newly found strength? Or does the newly found strength put its foot down and flip everything back bullish again? And now all we're doing is just continuing a high time frame trend, a new sort of market environment, right? That's the way that I like to think about things. So it's like this tug of war constantly. So when you do have, every single time frame confluently bullish, then that's when probabilities are at its highest. That's also usually where risk reward is at its lowest. So trading, when you think about it, is trying to find a mixture of the two and doing it consistently enough over the course of time to where you can actually use this and this analysis and this group to your benefit, either as a hobby, a side hustle, or a main form of income at best, right? And Martian has displayed that beautifully. His trades have been absolute killer lately, right? And it's just sort of applying that exact same concept. So that's ETH USD sort of summed up, and then ETH BTC. Similar trade. This got stopped out. I remember Martian closing this early and then taking a trade on ETH USD. Worked out and beautifully. He's killing it. All right, so ETH BTC looking pretty weak. Not gonna lie. We talked about lower time frame ranges. This high time frame analysis is really choppy, really odd, not too logical. So I think we can kind of just zoom in and make a lower time frame analysis and really understand the chart better than trying to say anything at all on this daily. Because this doesn't make too much sense to me. We're starting to consolidate. This is technically consolidation, but if I'm being quite honest, this is one of the ugliest consolidations I've ever seen. Right? And if we break below this low, then it's no longer consolidation. It is now a downtrend. Right? You form lower highs and then lower lows. So at that point, it would seem very likely that we come back down into this weekly demand zone once again. And when we do zoom out, truly the real analysis is, hey, you're just finding support at this weekly demand zone and then you're popping away from it, right? Buyers step in at weekly demand. It's weekly demand that sort of makes sense. And you see a nice little reaction. So reactions are getting weaker. So if we do keep bashing away at this weekly demand zone, again, we're going to pull out that complacency analysis. We're going to pull out hey, the more times this gets tested with lower highs that follow as a result of it being tested, the more likely that it is to eventually break down into higher time frame support levels, right? We'll look at those 200 weekly moving averages. We'll look at this weekly demand zone at 0.036, whatever it may be, right? We'll talk about it when the time comes. But as for the current price action on ETH BTC, really not too pretty. Do not want to um, make things too complicated. So, if you do recall, the prior analysis that we made was, hey, I'm talking about just this price action. I'm not looking at anything else. It was, hey, we are now ranging. We formed demand here, and then we used it as resistance here after forming this low. Now we have a range, and then we see range lows get tested, range highs get tested, range lows get tested. You could even call this a deviation if you really badly wanted to, and then range highs. And then range highs see the breakout and continuation of what is already a 4-hour uptrend. Right? These are all higher highs, higher lows. You have broken out and reclaimed your 4-hour 200s, the range highs, and this 4-hour supply zone, all as support. We said it makes more sense to anticipate the expansion and continuation of this trend away from the range and into higher time frame resistance levels rather than to anticipate the deviation. And then if you do get the deviation, you adjust and then you expect range lows. Range deviations tend to lead towards the opposite side of the range once they get confirmed. So we saw that play out beautifully. Range lows get tested once again. We're now kind of just chopping away at this like mid range level. But now we're just back in the range. We just have a deviation above the range now. So definitely not the prettiest price action. It 100% is justifiable. You could have asked me this anytime during this price action. I would have told you this is a deviation and it's likely to come back down into these range lows. We know that. Said it a million times. That's how range deviations tend to work. That's the way that you do want to play them. And obviously, you can't short ETH BTC as far as I'm aware, unless you're trading margined coins or whatever. I don't know. I don't really know of any way to short ETH BTC unless you're taking like a long on Bitcoin and then shorting more size on ETH to kind of hedge it out. I'm not really sure. It's just a really weird and odd concept to me. But Martian did do a good job of closing that trade out. I believe for not too much loss, maybe even taking a take profit before that. Not quite sure, and then sending a new trade out for ETH USD because while BTC was outperforming, the setup on ETH USD was cleaner. So man, this guy's killing it. You really can't ask for much more from this guy. Um, JC is, I'm sure, very happy with his performance. All right. Don't think there's anything else to take note of. Hourly 200s acted as that sort of resistance for that dead cat bounce that we got from the range lows, acting as resistance and then rejection. So, really, not too much more of an analysis to make. You don't want to be the person trading the mid range chop in between these two levels, right? You want to be the person that's buying this range low and quickly getting out, expecting expansion, or quickly getting back in if we reclaim. And you want to be the person selling these range highs, right? That's the person you want to be, and then buying the retest and expecting expansion and getting the fuck out if we lose, right? And confirm a deviation. So that's the person you want to be. Otherwise, would not be paying too much attention to this sort of price action. Does not interest me at all whatsoever. Okay. So dominance, this is the most fun for me to talk about. Dominance is ripping. As you guys know, I am not exposed to altcoins. I am mostly exposed to Bitcoin. And this is why, right? The same exact sort of spiel that I just gave you for that Bitcoin analysis about how the environment has changed, this time is different, whatever, yada, yada. And I sound like a complete bull boy who's just, wanting $1 million Bitcoin. When I'm making that analysis, that is also the same exact analysis that I've been making for dominance for a month now, right? Probably a month and a half, I would say, since about here. So dominance is ripping. Dominance is doing the probable thing, right? The more likely outcome, and it is going up. I don't really know how much clearer to make that. How high up is this going to go? I do not know. Maybe we just find a lower high at these, daily 200s. I'm talking about a lower high on like our weekly. Maybe we find the 200 dailies and then those reverse us and then, we can take things from there. Maybe this is the exact top. Maybe we just come up to 49.65. Maybe, whatever. Maybe. But the thing is, I don't care. I do not want to participate in any of that. I do not want to be exposed to altcoins during any of that. I want to position myself in a position where I can assume the probable outcome and quickly adjust if things change, right? That's what we did for Bitcoin during those 3 months of downtrend or range or whatever. When we're saying, hey, probabilities say down, you should also be in a position where you can expect down and quickly adjust with an invalidation, those 4 hour 200s, and no longer expect down, right? That is the same exact argument for Bitcoin dominance. I cannot express that enough. This time is different than what we've been seeing for the past 6 months. And today's, lashing on altcoins, BTC kind of sucking the life out of altcoins. It's really not even doing that much, truly. Maybe the lower cap altcoins, the like what people would refer to as shitcoins, are possibly not pumping at all compared to BTC. And I think for the most part, the majors and ETH, Link, Sol, whatever, are all doing a good job of keeping up. They're just not outperforming. So dominance is still going up. Bitcoin is sucking the life out of most of the altcoins, which makes sense. when you put it in the higher context of things, we did discuss this as a possibility. We've seen it before. If this is your first time in crypto, this does happen. Not frequently, but it does happen, not uncommonly either, right? So we discussed this as a potential outcome for whatever Bitcoin was going to do. Whether Bitcoin does end up breaking down from that range lows at 30K, it was likely that altcoins were just going to break down harder. And if we do see Bitcoin lash up and outwards, then there was always the possibility that altcoins get the life sucked out of them. And the best case scenario was Bitcoin goes up, but altcoins go up more. That's not what played out. Dominance sort of told us that that was not likely to play out, right? We're flipping the 4-hour 200s. We consistently use them as macro tops and macro bottoms. The momentum has changed. The environment has changed. This is no longer just expect down. Just expect your new all-time high for your favorite altcoin or whatever. This is a different market. I've been saying this for the past month, and we're just simply seeing continuation of that analysis. All right. So this is the most fun for me to talk about because it's really the simplest and it's the one that has remained true for the past month or so. All right. So MD Fleming says, when moon? uh, all right. Bunch of you guys in here. I'm so glad. This makes me so happy to see all you guys in here now. Now that the market is not fully bearish, I know you guys are excited. I know you guys want some bullish analysis, some up only sort of live streams. I'm more than willing to provide that as long as that's what probabilities are telling me. All right, but now that I'm done rambling, you guys can feel free to send in any sort of requests that you want to see. All right, so right off the bat, Soul Trader wants ADA USDT and Phil USDT. All right, ADA USDT, really odd chart. Again, market structure analysis, sort of weird. So many different ways you could interpret this. For the most part, I kind of just want to say that there's range demand here and there's range high supply up here. All right, that's mainly what I'm focused on. I'm not too focused on all these other levels. We can honestly delete them. Well, let's hide them for now. Wait a minute. Hide. Hide. Right. So I'm kind of just focused on these three levels. This is mid range. This is range lows. This is range highs. So when you're looking at it like that, it kind of just seems like we head up to range highs, and we've nearly done that. We might have a little bit more room to go, but our lower time frames are really going to tell us, you know, what's likely to happen. So ADA looking not too bad. Actually looks pretty solid. The thing that scares me is this little tiny 4-hour supply zone that we have drawn that very nicely got respected, and then started to become illogical as we started trading throughout it rather than the clean taps. And we talk about the reasoning and justification for this all the time. But when we started to trade throughout it, started to get really illogical. So that scares me into thinking that this might be illogical price action as well. So while this is a very clean breakout retest of our 4-hour 200s, I'm hesitant to just like long and expect the continuation because I see the potential for this to be a deviation and we melt through and just head back down and now we're just looking for a higher low on our 4 hours somewhere higher than this low here at $1.18, right? So another 8% or so below current price action. So if we pull out on, let's try and justify this. right? Yeah, so that's exactly what I mean. So let's do like 500 and 100, right? So clean pivot level as far as this sort of range, but I'm sure if you drag this out towards the entirety of the range, it starts to just become like a cluster where this whole general region is now this peak, right? So very clean, got rejected, currently bullish retesting the 4-hour 200s. If we have some confluence on the lower time frames to agree that this might be a good buy zone, then maybe I can justify, putting my fears to the side, but we don't have the confluence that I would want to see, which is the hourly 200s. So those are all the way down there, confluent with our invalidation in our market structure, right? That 4-hour high or low, but not anywhere close to being confluent with that just flipped sideways 4-hour 200s. So really choppy price action for me on ADA. I'd be interested more in losing the 4-hour and then breaking down into these hourlies, and then I would look to get long from here. Or if we do end up finding support here, then I can assume that this was the breakout retest and full shift into bullish price action continuation at this point, right? Reclaiming this pivot level, this supply zone, whatever you want to call it. So I would look for this and I would look for this. All right, and then the other one was Phil USDT, and this might actually be a similar analysis. Let me bring this to front. All right, so daily chart, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is still a downtrend. This is still a very strong downtrend, and I think that's obvious. I don't think that's a secret to anyone, really. These are all lower highs and lower lows, right? But does this have room to run? Absolutely. This has potential to head up to this 200 daily EMA and have a 25% move and still not even be bullish on your high time frame, right? A 25% move and you're not even bullish on the daily chart. That is obviously huge potential. It also means that we're strongly downtrending. So usually I'm not a fan of charts that look like this, and that goes along with this chart on the 4-hour as well. Not really a fan of the way this looks. TradingView does not like to save my stuff. Probably because I don't pay for a subscription because I'm a pleb. But the 4-hour chart, 4-hour 200s have consistently rejected us. We use them for macro bottom once or twice, and then we kind of chop throughout them. They start acting as resistance. They give us that shift and momentum, and then we start using them as macro tops, right? You can say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then maybe potentially here is going to be the fifth time. Is this time different? Usually this time is not different. Obviously for Bitcoin on July 24th, that time was different, right? And we acknowledged it. So I would do the exact same thing here that we just did for Bitcoin. And I would say, if we break out and reclaim, acknowledge that. Acknowledge the shift. That is a huge, significant event. The thing that you've used as a macro top for the past 3 times in the uh, course of 3 months or so, you have now just broken out of and reclaimed as support. So from there, I think this 20% move or so that we just talked about is a probable 20%. I no longer think it's, we just have room to run potentially. You could have said, oh, we have room to run here, right? We have room to run. This is our lower high on the daily. We could potentially run 70%. How probable is that? It's not very probable. You're still downtrending on lower time frames as well. So if your low time frames start to show strength, which they already have, right? Your 4-hour is uptrending. Your hourly is obviously uptrending. I can only imagine that your hourly 200s are strongly sloped towards the upside and uptrending. If this time is no different, you lose all that strength and the daily takes priority and the downtrend continues to be a downtrend. If that analysis that we just said for the hourly in our 4-hour uptrend continues into a reclaim and even more strength being shown, I now think that this would be a probable move and worth going long for, right? You would get an entry, hopefully along the 4-hour 200s. You would hide your stop loss wherever the 4-hour market structure is, and you simply just target the next daily supply zone. And that in itself, hypothetically, could be like a 3R trade. All right, so we'll leave that there, and maybe next live stream we'll come back and talk about it. DK said invert the chart and make it a bearish stream. No, man, I'll scare everyone away. I've done a really great job of scaring everyone away the past 3 months. I don't want to continue doing that. Finally, these live streams starting to pick up in viewers. I know a lot of you guys have been watching this in YouTube as well, but probably just not as eager to see it live. And believe me, I completely understand that. I was the person on May 19th when we broke into the range that said, hey, this is probably home for a while. Now is the time to start picking up new hobbies and hanging out with your girlfriend more and riding bikes and changing a workout routine, doing whatever, right? Unrelated to crypto, unrelated to trading, unrelated to the market. So 100%, I completely understand. It's changing, right? We're still in the range, but it's changing. So I'm glad to see that you guys have also acknowledged that. All right, Hex USDC. Um, I don't know what else to say. This is an uptrend. This is something that is an only up sort of asset. We are consistently making higher highs and higher lows into new all-time highs. I really don't have much more of an analysis for you. The 4-hour 200s are pretty consistent. Nice macro bottoms. I would start making my bearish arguments and stop expecting new all-time highs once they get lost. Right? Once they start to curl over, once we stop using them as macro bottoms, once we start using them as resistance, just like we did for Bitcoin back in May or April or whatever it was, right? And just like we did for ETH, that's when I stop expecting the trend to remain the trend. And what I mean by that is someone somewhere is calling this the top, right? Only for it to be a higher low on your daily and a new all-time high to follow. And then someone out there somewhere is calling this a top, only for it to be a higher low on your daily, to form consolidation, and then a higher high and then a new all-time high to follow. And then someone out there somewhere is calling this a top, right? Higher low on the daily, higher high, new all-time high to follow. Someone out there somewhere is calling this a top. If you call the top enough, eventually you're going to be right. Even a broken clock is right 2 times in the day. But you don't want to expect that this is the time that we're going to top out. You want to expect the trend to remain the trend. And if we get stuck, if time all of a sudden stops moving on the exact same minute that that broken clock is pointing at, then you acknowledge that and then you adjust and then you say, all right, this time's different, right? So the 4-hour 200s for me are my example of that, or my invalidation, or whatever you want to call it. Would not have worked here, but again, reclaiming them would make me think that this time is no different. Actually, no, I'm sorry. The trend didn't form until after this price action. So this is nulled. Ignore this. This is the trend. This is when the trend forms. Right? And even on this little liquidation cascade wick, I don't know what that is, probably illiquidity. This is Uniswap, so wouldn't really shock me. And in the meantime, I would just target fibs. And so what fibs I would target, kind of a hard analysis. Don't really have much to work with here. I'm going to use I want to use this high to low, but I'm not sure if I should. Let's try it out and let's see what it gives us. No, I don't really like that. All right, next one I want to use is this high to low. So let's try that one. And that one is pretty clean, but it is currently irrelevant. After the 11.09 fib, I kind of run out of analysis. That's like, damn, we just kept going above that too. So again, I would have to move on to the next high to low. Canfield. JC uses Canfield Fibonacci retracements or extensions, sorry, after the 11.09. And that's just continuing the Fibonacci sequence. And for some reason, no one else has ever really thought of this or at least publicized it. And so Jacob named it after himself. And so that's what he uses. Personally, why I love JC, I use my style, which is after the 11.09, I just find a new fib. So now on this fib draw, this high to low, we tapped the 4.236, got rejected. 1.618 was nicely respected, got rejected. So I would just continue targeting these fib draws. Again, if it just continues above that too, great. We just come to this high to low, draw a new fib, see what it gives us, come to this high to low. Just repeat the process over and over and over again. You always want to remain exposed to whatever's uptrending into new all-time highs. And then you want to escape when the party stops, right? When the music stops blasting, you do not want to be the one that's still on the dance floor. What Merc's scaring? Never. Uh, I'm glad we can all joke about it. I was the voice of reason during the downtrend. I'm going to be the voice of reason now that the market has shifted too, right? Anything else that you guys want to see? Yeah, and I see a bunch of you are server muted. It's no hard feelings. It was probably just you didn't have your mic muted during a live stream one time and I had to server mute you. If you want to be unmuted, let me know. If you could care less, that's fine. And if you want to unmute your mic and come talk to me and ask me a question or whatever, that's fine too. If you guys have nothing else for me, then I will just end the stream here and get out. All right. Well, I have nothing else for you guys. You guys don't seem to have anything for me. So we'll go ahead and end the stream here. As always, I very much appreciate all of you. Love you all so much. Thank you for coming out and watching the stream. Thank you to the ones who are even watching the streams on YouTube recordings, even when the market wasn't fun and exciting and potentially shifting or whatever. Thank you so much. Really does mean a lot. And I truly do believe that it is benefiting you, or at least I would hope it is benefiting you. I do my best to try to make it to benefit you. So thank you a lot. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone had a great weekend. And yeah, nothing else to say. So I will see you guys on Wednesday. All right. Take it easy, everyone. Have a great day.